Hi everyone. So this, as the title says, is basically it's not really a Q&A. It's answers for questions that have been posted to me and general advice based on a lot of the feedback from Discord. But before I go through, so I'm going to try and answer a lot of questions in this shortish video, and then you'll find there's going to be some short, with this same kind of format, there'll be short videos, very specific subjects. Okay, so let me go through these. I will put in the index, I'll title them up, but anyway. So firstly, if you're a backer, now obviously we have got some pre-order people shouldn't be getting them anyway yet, but if you're a backer and you've had your monitor, hopefully you read this post. Now basically what this is saying is, when you first get your monitor, this is to help stop email. This actually worked. I mean, about 600 monitors were shipped, so this is obviously working. Unfortunately, it didn't go in the manual, but that's why it's here, and that's why it's on this video, and this video will be publicly available. So as you can see, before you, to save panic and emails, if you're wondering where the power supply and remote control is, it's in that little section there in the packaging in the base, where it says PSU here. Okay, everything's in there, spare parts. We put it all in that little space. Okay. Second thing is, people are saying, where's the power lead for the power supply? We're not supplying it. Main reason being size. It all counts, and it's already really expensive to ship. That's not the main reason. The main reason is these things change all around the world. There's about half a dozen different types. It's just too complicated for us at the moment to do this, and it's just a nightmare at the moment. So it's just one of these. You can pick them up anywhere for next to nothing. The remote controls don't have a battery in them, so there's no batteries. You need two of these AAA batteries, the little ones. You need to buy them. This is to do with lithium batteries going around the world. You know what it's like. If we put them in there, it'll cause issues. I don't supply the batteries. Also, there's now if you backed the Kickstarter and you paid by bank transfer or Wise, which I'm not kidding you, saved this project, you'll be getting one of these. Nice little manual. You probably already know that. People are already getting them. If you pay by credit card, there's an online PDF version. If you're wondering why, there's about on each monitor, it's about £25-30 worth of charges. And of course, we spent so much money developing this, every penny counts. So for people who pay by Wise or bank transfer, thank you very much, and you're getting the manual as a gift. But if you didn't, either way, you will get some stickers, and you can see that. Now, I have a confession. I've gotten around the wrong way. The top one, AV and TV, they're reversed. Alright, now it's easy. Cut them, move them. Okay, I know it's stupid, and I'm sure I tested it, but there you go. So that's that part. Let's bring up my notes, which I can click on here. Right. So that's that. Right. So as you may be aware, let's get rid of that. As you may be aware, we shipped the first container load at the end of last week. I've been taking a bit of a breather, a few days breather, and also going through on Discord and answering questions and contacting people with issues. Let's be clear, this has not been without some issues. You can't have something this complex and it doesn't. I think a lot have been caused by shipping. Right, I wouldn't be surprised. But there's been mistakes on my part, which I'm going to go through now. So, oh yeah, thanks to everybody on Discord. You've been amazing. I honestly, the fact that you've all been, thank you to Starius for setting that whole thing up for me and monitoring it. Got to thank 9X, been great. another guy with a manual, and I've forgotten his name. One guy's done a couple of manuals for installing the, for setting up the Mister and the Pi, I think. The 2 manuals, which I haven't had time to do. I always do videos, and I haven't got the finished parts, so I'll do that later, but the manual's pretty good. So thanks to all of you for supporting each other. It's not that I'm not bothering, it's just you've got yours, great, but there's lots of other people who want theirs, and I'm trying to ship as quick as I can. But now I'm on downtime until the next container. So, panels. We have... Now, I paid over the top to get these panels tested thoroughly, right? And we're still getting the odd panels. Now, to be fair, it's not many. But we've had... Now, it's meant that now I've added a panel test regime. Well, we do, because we run them, and you can tell. But I've got a dead pixel test now, which I run, and we go through just to double check that. So we've had I think about 3 panels out in the field with a dead 1 or 2 dead pixels, which is no good. They're going to get replaced. We've had a couple with screwy displays, which I think is more than likely the LVDS cable. If you don't know what it means, just to me it's a cable from the controller to the panel, which again we can replace that. They're obviously a bit more urgent, but I've got a list of people that I've got to get in touch with. And got that one, got that guy. Oh yeah, now this is an interesting one. That if you turn all your lights off, right? Because we don't notice this in testing, okay? Because we have lights on. But if you turn all your lights off and then look at it jet black, there are some panels that have got some glow. There's a bit of blooming on the corners, on the edges. 99% of them, right? 95%. There's half a dozen mentioned it, but if you look at the back of the bezel, hang on, let me grab a monitor. So again, I don't get it, but you know. So they're in the corners, and so what you need to do is, what we found is, so just to be clear, this bezel is the second bezel. The idea of the second bezel was to stop that, which is why it's a bit frustrating. But if you loosen these screws all the way around, don't take them out because it'll fall off, but just loosen them off so it's not putting pressure on the panel. Now, this is a real balancing act, and I'll explain why. You want that bezel close to the panel, but you don't want it pushing on it. And so you're talking half a mil. So what's happened is, I think also where the panel is screwed into the frame, it may be slightly lifted, which is putting more pressure on. So I'm looking into this. I will get back to you on this, but it's there. But just if you loosen it off, pretty much everyone said if you loosen it off, it cures it. Again, it's only if it's... I understand, but... had I been Samsung or something like that, we can just, do another one. 15,000 each time. So anyway, if we do something later on where we have to do another panel, we'll make those available to people, okay? But it is loosen it off. Remote control problems. Okay. So with the remote control, I've got 2 or 3. I've never had one go wrong, but we've had some people. I had one guy's cracked. Hopefully he's got this replacement. It was cracked, so I don't know why I'm there. So if you've got a broken one, we'll replace it. However, this is the important thing. We test every single monitor before they go out. Okay. I literally do. Every single monitor I check. And we check it for all the functions. The one thing I don't do is I don't press the 4 buttons. Okay. They're kind of just there as the emergency. But we always test it with our remote control to make sure it's all working. However, if you got it and it's not working, there is a test. You can point this at a phone camera and see if there's light coming from here. Okay. If there is, then it's unlikely to be this. Make sure you put batteries in, please. We don't. But the other thing about it can be is let me grab my model. Okay. These buttons here, there's the infrared and there's the LED. They all connect to a single green button bar. And that has a cable with lots of little wires in it, and it goes to the bottom of, you can't see it this, but inside here, right, does mean a bit of disassembly. Don't panic if you've got to disassemble it. If you're having that issue, you can take the boards out. Be very careful with the cable that goes from the top of the panel to there, okay? And always, it's called slot 0 for a reason, always goes at the bottom, okay? Right, so you take that out, and you'll notice right at the bottom, you'll see that at the back, you'll see there's a wide white cable, connector, sorry, with probably 20 single wire red wires, okay? Just make sure it's pushed in. Okay, I don't check them all, and we test them all, and if there's because sometimes we get them where they don't work, and you just push them and it connects and it's all good. Just make sure that it's pushed in, because probably 9 times out of 10 it'll literally just be that. Push them in, make sure it's okay, then put it all back together again. Now I think that's, yeah, as I said, we tested them, but I think the parcel services are like, catch. Hope not, but we spent a lot of money, a lot of time and money on the packaging, so it's pretty well protected. But of course, I can't stop it's shaking. It's all screwed together tight, and the whole thing's held together well. But so the only thing I think of, it might have just worked a bit loose. Okay, so the GBS node. A couple of people have mentioned they're having trouble connecting to it, like it says in the manual. They're having trouble connecting to it. Now, it's important to understand it's called a NodeMCU. It's just an ESP controller, so I'd get technical. It's probably not got the strongest Wi-Fi. It's only a tiny little device. And also, there's an awful lot of metal chassis in there holding it together. But at the top, there's no metal at the top, so it allows the Wi-Fi to communicate. Okay, so just if you're doing it with a tablet, if you're having that issue, probably it could be just something interfering or something like that. But just get a bit closer to it, above it, you should be fine. It connects okay. So having said this, I think I'm going to come back to it later on about a point about updating, but there is a new version of the GBS-Control. If you do that, hopefully I'll repeat this later on. If you do that, if you want to update the firmware, don't do it on the existing node. Buy a new one. They're only about £5. They're very, very cheap. Buy one. Program it yourself. Don't mess around with the original one. Keep that, because it works, right? I don't want people saying, can I buy one? No, because it's too much hassle for us to do this. We have them all assembled. So buy a node first. Kind of looks like one of these, which is sealed in a box. Figures. Looks a little bit like, but that one's got a little screen on it, but it's a little tiny little board. You can get them for £5. No issues. So if you want to do that, but the reason for saying it is there's a few advanced features you can change, or you can delete profiles, and also it's apparently improved the Wi-Fi connections, which might be useful. Unfortunately, that came out after we produced them all. Right, let's go to HDMI. Right, okay, HDMI switcher issues. A couple of people have mentioned that they've had problems connecting. It seems to be cable related, so swap your cables around just to make sure the cables are okay. If you have got if you're for some, now I do check these to make sure that this is part of the test routine, but if yours comes up and says HDMI 1, HDMI 2 and nothing else, contact us and we'll send you a new board that goes on the top with the HDMI. You shouldn't be, because I test them, as I said, but this is usually cables. Scott, I'm going to possibly come back to that I'm going to come back to that later. Scott inputs, invalid format issue. Now, if you're plugging into the Scott, now it's very important to understand when you're plugging in via the SCART, some SCART cables are composite, all right? And some people are plugging in a composite. It's a SCART lead, but it's not an RGB SCART. It's a composite SCART. So you need to be looking at AV3 in the menu. So that's kind of important. Make sure it is an RGB SCART, and also we are at the mercy of rubbish cables. Okay, so if you put a rubbish cable on it, you're going to get a rubbish signal. I'm sorry. Okay, ours are pretty damn good. Now, if you're getting an invalid format issue, I do check for this, but go to the on the front on the Jog Dial. And there's one there for once it's obviously on. There's a selection that says resolutions. Press that, scroll down, and you'll see one that's I think 720. I might say 480, 566, something like that. Press that one, okay? Right? Press that one. It's very important. That will set the display in that mode, okay? And then you'll be able to see it. Right? Now it should be that like that by default. Should go straight to that. I will come back on to this subject later. Right, question about the rear headphones. I think only one person said this, but just so you know. Actually, probably very late in the day, we added a headphone jack at the front of the monitor. Everyone got a headphone jack, but there's also a headphone jack at the back. If you plug a set of now the headphone jack at the back is next to the power lead. It's not the one next to the VGA. That's the VGA audio input. Okay, so this is the headphone jack at the back. When you plug a jack into either of the headphone jacks, it should mute the speakers. Okay, that should happen. If it doesn't mute the speakers to the back one, if it's the back one doesn't mute the speakers, there's probably something a bit wrong with the slot 0 board, right? Get in touch with us and we'll discuss swapping it out. If it's the front one, it could be, it's unlikely because I test every single monitor for the front. There is a little a closing, I forget what they're damn called. Bridging block across a couple of connectors. If you look on the back plane, just above slot 0 on the right, if you've got a little block covering 2, you need to pull that off. That's not meant to be on there. That was only there, long story. But if you've got the headphones thing on the front, pull that. Make sure it's not on there. There shouldn't be one on there because we test every single one. Okay. So that's that. So if you plug in and you get nothing, do one of those things. If it's the rear one, it means there's something wrong with slot 0. Light bleed on panel I've done. Yes, very quickly, Arcooda panels being worked on. So that'll be a later one. Yes, there's been a couple of guides written, which is really handy. They are on Discord. If you want them, I've been given permission to share them. So if you want one, just get in touch. Or if I get time, I'll stick it up on the website. Okay, but it is on Discord. Right, some questions on Discord. HDMI colour adjustment. Okay, so this has been asked if we can do HDMI colour adjustment. Now, not. Okay, so if I switch to here, right, so this is my Amiga. But it's going in HDMI, and as you can see, HDMI, DVI, 1024, 768, 50 Hertz. Okay, that's important. Right, but that's not important at the moment. But if you press menu, picture mode, so you have the standard, you can change soft, user, and you can change your color there, your color levels. And there's also a tint, but tints tends to be on composite. Okay, and so you've got some you can see with vivid, it's hard coded, you can see, but you can play with the color and mess around with the color brightness and so on. So there is that you can do. However, there has been a mention about can we fine tune the colors. Now let me before I do that, let me get rid of, turn off vivid. That's a bit too bright for this. There we go. In fact, let's go to standard. There you go. There is an advanced mode. Now, I'm not making this available publicly, but just and I'm probably going to get you to email me or put a note on your order to say you understand the risks. Technically, you could brick the slot 0, okay, and then We don't want you doing that. But so just so you can see, to answer the question, this is how I tweaked the the Vivid, because I created that. Okay, so there's the advanced factory settings. Okay, I haven't decided whether to release this yet, but there's picture mode, you see, or that's that. Let me just go back. There's lots of colors you change and you can do, you see. There's a lot of stuff in here you can do. I'm a bit nervous about giving access to it. But you know, I'll give that some thought. I don't think there's anything you really need to do for most people. You've got everything you need in there. Right, next. Auto contrast issue, yes. Now, I don't think many people are going to notice this, but there is a video on there. It turns black, white, and it does that, and it freaks the display out. So the firmware on the auto contrast is flaring. It's trying to, you know, we need to look at the auto contrast. Yeah, it 99% of the times it's not an issue unless you go looking for it. But it's been pointed out, and yes, we need to have a look at it, and it's one of the jobs for the firmware. Amiga video quality, check your cables. Right, I get fantastic quality. I mean, I haven't actually got anything on here, but I do actually get really good. In fact, I can actually. No, I can't. Yeah, it's too complicated. That's HDMI, so ignore that. But I get great composite, and I also get, well, it's a 1000, so obviously. But RGB is great. Make sure you've got a good cable, right? Shielded cable, because you're screwed otherwise. I will be a video all about this on the SCAR separately, so I'm not going to do it now. But yeah, it's good. Now, I've done the stickers and the invalid format. I've done that, right. Okay, so finally, this is kind of important. Now, let me show you this. See that? 50 hertz, right? Very important. It turns out, because now I'm not going to call this a mistake, but it's a misunderstanding. Okay, bear with me. So basically, as I've been talking with 9 experts, I mean, it's going to be a little bit of that, because I was under the assumption that when you use the GBS, now let's preempt this, right? I tried to contact the developers of GBS-Control, I had no luck, because we wanted to say, you know, I know it's open source, we're allowed to, but I wanted to say, hey, do you want a monitor as a gift, or, you know, that kind of thing, right? But I had no real luck, and I'm saying it now, so if they get in touch, I'll send them a monitor, right? Because it's a brilliant piece of firmware. Anyway, I was on the understanding that you needed to create, because it's PAL, you needed to use the PAL. There's a 480 and a 566 mode in it, and I was on the understanding of using that. So when I went to China, I got them to do the firmware to create a 724 by 566, 724 480 modes, right? And then what happens, it would send to there. But as has been pointed out to me, right, and absolutely right, it's not like I didn't know this, it's just I didn't realise I was doing it the wrong way. I always thought it looked fantastic, right? But if you can see over in the corner there is my Apple II GS. Now that runs, my Amiga runs at 50 hertz, right? And that runs at 60, okay? Now my Amiga at 50 hertz in the 724 mode looks, I think, really good. Yes, it's been, what's basically happened is it's scaled and then scaled again. Yeah, so it's a little bit soft, but I've always thought it looked fantastic. However, that has proven me, the GS has proven to me, because it's 60 hertz, our panel will not do 1280, 1024, and 1024 by 768 at 50 hertz. It'll only do 60, and it's a firmware issue, because in HDMI, it does 50 hertz on all of them, right? Now, as I said, I was not aware of this, but I am now, okay? So, when I switched, because I was doing the same thing with the GS, running in this 724 566 mode, or like it was actually 640 or something like that, and it looked soft and it looked great, right? As soon as I switched it to 1280 by 1024, really sharp, 60 hertz, sharp, yeah, wow, okay. I'm wrong. So we have a number of things that we always knew there's going to be a few things to go back to China. We got to get them to give me the modes in VGA that are on the HDMI, the 50 hertz modes. That's something that I'd always done it the other way, because I'm saying, look, my PAL, I'm getting 50 hertz in a PAL and NTSC modes, and it's absolutely smooth as silk. But you can have that without the doubling of the smoothing, yeah, which is actually going to make it a lot better. So thanks to 9X for that. When I go to China, again, that's just that'll be just a case of getting a file, putting it on. Make sure you keep the old version. Getting a file. Well, you won't have it. I'll give it to you. Getting a file, putting on a USB stick, putting in one of the ports, turning it on, let it finish, and then pulling that out and deleting the file. Once you've done that, then you'll get the new firmware. So that's just a firmware for slot 0. Doesn't affect the scaler at all. So that's something that's kind of going to be it's going to make this even better than what it is now. Everyone who sees it with the Amiga with me looks fantastic, but this is going to sharpen it up even more, which is going to be mind blowing. Okay, I forgot 2 things. I might have missed others, but I've just added these 2 bits in. Okay. First thing, the speakers. There's it was pointed out to me by a number of people that there's a slight hiss from the speakers. Now, I've never heard it, right? So now bear in mind I'm getting old, right? So I've not heard it, and no one has ever mentioned it, but most of the times people have seen it's been in loud environments. Now, even some of the people who've commented have said this, right? If you go right next to the monitor, right, like about 4 to 6 inches away, you can hear this slight hiss. And it is there, right? There's no beating around the bush. There is a slight hiss. I have mentioned it to Appy. We are looking into it. So the Discord guys. We're not quite sure what it is. We never noticed it before. But there is now, bear in mind we've got these great big speakers on there, right? And they're really good speakers, really good quality cables. And Appy's gone to town on the ground planes and all that kind of stuff. But it was a slight hiss, which is, from my point of view, frustrating. But again, I never noticed it. So your mileage may vary. If you're my age, you probably can't hear it. It is there. I'm sorry. We're looking into it. Andy has actually, he spotted it, but he didn't want to tell me. I don't know why. Apparently he's tweaked his settings on the audio and it's kind of minimized it. So really dropped a lot of it. So I've actually asked him to, he hasn't sent me, when I see him next in a week or 2, I'll remind him and ask him to just check so he can tell you the settings. But again, we are looking into this. You have to be there. Now, some people are going to say, oh, I can hear it from 20 foot away. I can't, but, it is what it is. So that's that. The next thing, I forgot. No, I have actually mentioned the GBS node, but some people have been saying the node's not coming on. So I thought I'd add this bit in and cover it. So. Now, some people are buying the monitors without the scaler, okay? Now, it's only about 10% of monitors are shipping without the scaler. But you're still getting the OLED, okay, and the Jog Dial, okay? Which means it doesn't do anything, all right? I get that, okay? However, because 90% of people are having the scaler, and it's the scaler that controls the OLED, yeah? That's the important thing to understand. It's the scaler that turns it on and powers it. Well, actually, the backplane powers it if you want to be technical, but it sends a signal to the OLED to turn on and send some information to it. The slot 0 does nothing. It's very important to understand. But there will be other products that come along that will use it. So I left it on there. Now, if you hate it, right, in the power supply box, there's a couple of blanks there's a blank that you can take that out and replace it, and there's one with USB connectors, and they both got the holes. You might have to drill the hole out just a bit to get the headphone socket on. If you really want to get rid of it, you can. Some people have even done a 3D printed cover, button cover and that kind of thing, which is kind of cool, but not really. Yeah, it's kind of cool. So anyway, but this is an example of something that we're working on. And it's basically a app. He got bored, and it's a spectrum analyzer. I don't think you're going to be able to see it very well. It's a spectrum analyzer, and what it does, it connects up to the audio. I know people are saying to me, "Can we order it? Can we order?" Soon, okay. But it actually, and then it turns it into a spectrum analyzer, so you can see the audio, which is quite nice. And if there's no audio, it'll turn itself off. So now let's get to the point. So as you can see, that one is not on. But when I turn on, hopefully you can see it. Let me go full screen, actually. I'm not focusing. I'm going to go out of focus. Okay, now, because of what I've just done, you can see it's flashing because there's no signal going into the scalers. The scaler's going... but if you select VGA, right, switch to it, right, it's still going. Well, there's nothing there. But little tip. Get the channel button, because each port has two technical VGA scalar channels. So if you press the up button, there you go. So if you're not using the scalar, turn it off because you don't need it. Okay, now that's popped up because I've obviously got the Amiga's not on. But yeah, so now you can see it, and then you can see the jog dial and so on. So it's there. Let me focus. I know you don't want to see my ugly mug. Oh, hang on. I'm going the wrong way, look. Put a bit more focus. Yeah, so if you don't have it, you won't. There's nothing on it. I mean, if you don't have a scalar and you buy something like this, or you buy another product that plugs into it that uses it, you've got it. So just leave it. A couple of people did mention that the jog dial is a bit loose. Now, I don't tighten them up. So all you got to do is pull. Let's focus back on that again. I would zoom in, but pull this off. Don't panic about it. I'm not gonna say, you changed it. There's a nut underneath it. Just tighten the nut up a bit, okay, just in case if it is a little bit loose, because it's literally held together by a nut at the back. Just holds it in, and the dial, and then you push it. It's a very strong button. There was one thing that because we never planned to have this on, the mouldings for the polystyrene were not. There's no cutout for it, so you will find the polystyrene is actually touching the button. Okay, if it gets thrown, it will just click it, but it is a solid bit of metal. You know, the button is a very strong piece of kit, so it should be fine. But yeah, so that's how to use that. And if it's not working, I suppose I should say, same thing with the little the button bar and the remote. When I said about the cable with connection, if you look in the back but I will do a video on this. But you'll see the connectors. Make sure the connectors haven't popped off. You'll find actually the OLED one. There's a bit of really horrible hot glue because it's the only connector that doesn't have a catch. It just literally it's friction on, and so obviously going through flying around the world kind of thing. What I've done is I pushed it on, and then I've put a little bit of hot glue on the top of the connector to connect to the board, so it holds it. It's got more chance of arriving when it connected. So that's why there's the hot glue. But just make sure they're connected, and also the jog dial is kind of at an angle that way. Just make sure that's connected. They should be fine. If you do get any issues with it literally is broken, we can always replace it. But it's in a £2 or £3 component. These components are actually very cheap, and I added them at the last minute just to give that extra for the scalars. Anyway, so that's that little interjection. We'll carry on now. So that's that. There's not an awful lot more at the moment. As I said, I'm going to go into depth on each of these. For example, how to use the RF. Yeah, It doesn't come with that sticker. How to get to use the RF modes, how to use some of the other, how to use the SCART, how to get the best out of the SCART. I'm going to do some videos on that. But anyway, I thought I'd do this, give you all an update, point out where I've been an idiot, but thanks for supporting the project. And you know, look, we're going through these. Another container's arriving on the 3rd. We should have it by the 7th of February, and it will take 4 or 5 weeks to ship that. And I've got another container leaving China in 2 weeks, about 2 weeks from now, and that'll be then coming over here. So that's a couple of months to the next container, and then we get all them. And obviously now the 3rd container, not many of them are sold. So there's about 50 of them have actually been sold for people. There's some still people haven't paid their balances, but those are on there as long as they pay their balances. But yeah, that container's coming. So if you do want one, hurry, because the Germans are coming. Michael's going to be placing his order once that's on the open ocean. Once that container's on the seas, I'm going to get him to get people to start taking the orders. So again, thanks very much. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do a stream on Monday, but maybe. But thanks so much, and speak to you soon.